Thanks very much, Kieran, and also thank you, Karen Arutron, for a wonderful opening address. I think Karen has touched upon so many important points. You have gone through a 4-year degree program. You're now coming out at the other end of that, and you're starting your journey as nurses and midwives. And I think it's very important to realize how important you are. We are in an environment, and you'll hear later from the president of the ICN about the global shortage that exists of nurses and midwives. Ireland is no different to other countries in that regard. And our graduates coming out each year is vital for the health service. And it's not just that your body's out there to assist in providing health to the nation. It's more that what you bring, it's your youth, it's your energy. That's really, really important. It re-energizes the workplaces in which you go to, and you have many decisions to make over the next number of months about where you want to go to work. And the great thing about nursing and midwifery is, yes, there are so many options. You can develop in so many different ways, depending on what you want to do. So it could be you'd like to go into education, or maybe medical, surgical, theatre, ICU, specialist areas. And there's so many options that are available to you that you will decide, and you will design your career pathway as you progress. So as Kieran outlined, I'm Tony Fitzpatrick. I'm the Director of Industrial Relations with the Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation. And as you know, I'm part of the senior management team, which is made up of Philny Hay, who will speak to you later, Dave Hughes, the Deputy General Secretary. And then there's two sections of the INMO as such, or two faces. It's the professional, the education, continuous professional development, regulatory, which is very important. And Edward will talk to you about that later, about that you're not just employed. You don't just have a contract of employment with an employer. You're also a regulated professional, and there are certain standards that are expected of you. So on the industrial relations side, I just briefly want to outline to you the importance of being part of a union. So you'll often hear the expression, what does the INMO do for me? What does a union do for me? And I think the first thing to realize is that it's not a separate entity. We are all the INMO. We all have a role to play. So whether it's the people you elect to be on the Executive Council, and for example, the student representative is Melissa Plunkett, that was elected to represent the interests of students on the Executive Council, which is basically the board that oversees the workings of the INMO. You have the staff like myself and my colleagues who are employed by the organisation to fulfil certain roles. But the lifeblood of any organisation is its members and its participation. You must participate because acquiescence allows other things to thrive. So what we need is participation. We need to be engaged. We need to be involved. We need to be organised at local and national level in order that we can exercise the power that a large collective group of over 40,000 nurses and midwives can exert, whether it's within the trade union movement, whether it's within society or politically. So that's the first message I would say to you. It's vitally important that you get involved. And therefore, I obviously applaud Kieran and Laura, who obviously are fulfilling roles within the student section. But it's important that others step forward as well, whether it's the local branch that decides the policy of the organisation through their motions going to annual delegate conference, or the section, if you're an ICU or ED or wherever it is, that you get involved in the various sections that the organisation has set up, and participate in that way. But so it's not what is the INMO doing for me, it's what we're all doing for each other. And I think that's vitally important, that we realise that if we work together, we're organised, we're structured, we can exert power. So just what does that mean in real terms? So for example, you've just finished an honours degree programme, or about to finish an honours degree programme. Again, that was brought about by the INMO's commitment to progressing the professions of nursing and midwifery. So that programme was introduced back in the noughties, and through sterling work from the Gen Sec Liam Doran at that time, and others, the whole programme moved from hospital-based to university or college-based. And that was a significant shift with regards to nursing and midwifery, because the argument that was made continuously was that we couldn't be paid the same as other graduate professionals because we weren't coming into the workplace with a degree. Now that's been addressed, and we continue to pursue the other issues that are relevant with regards to that. So, for example, obviously you're going to qualify shortly, and you'll be coming into the workplace, and it's important that you realize the salary scales that apply to you. So obviously you go to the first point of the scale for 16 weeks, and then you progress, you skip the second point of the scale onto the third point of the scale, which is 33,000. And then after a year and 16 weeks, you're entitled to go on to the enhanced salary scale. And it's important that people realize that salary scale is 37,000, starts at 37,161. So there's 37,000, 39, then you're into the 40s. But before that, you had to go to 30, to 32, to 33, to 34, to 36, to 37, to 39. So through the dispute, when we were organized and we could exert our power and our muscle back in 2019, we got an improved salary scale, which will mean that you will learn very quickly. You'll be 16 weeks on the first point, skip the second point onto the third, and then each year you'll be earning cumulatively a lot more than if we hadn't gone on strike and if we hadn't taken the fight to the employer about appropriate terms and conditions of employment. And that's just one example of how a dividend was delivered by us and our members being organized and exerting our power in that regard. Most of you will work in an area that will attract an allowance. Medical and surgical areas are now comprehended since 2019, and that's where the majority of new graduates commence their career. So again, that's an allowance in excess of €3,300, that will be available to you in the workplace. And again, that's vitally important that you realize that. And I know Catherine and others are going to talk about that. I should have said the qualification allowances too, but it's 2,347 and the location allowance. But again, that should be added into your salary scale, and it's important that people realize what they're entitled to in that regard. So what else does the INMO do? I suppose you're going to hear from Annette Kennedy, who's the ICN. We also hold the presidency of the EFN, which is the European Federation of Nursing. And as you know, Catherine is involved in the student end of that as well. But so therefore we're involved at multiple layers, internationally and nationally, trying to progress the professions of nursing and midwifery and to get better terms and conditions of employment for our staff. I think if we look at COVID-19, it's important to state that what did the union do in that we had a global pandemic? What had to be addressed? We know the situation, the traumatic impact it's had upon our members, the pivoting from providing one service to another, testing and tracing, the rollout of the largest vaccination program in the history of the state. Presently, we have a very high activity within our hospital and community settings. And again, it's important to state that the key piece with regards to that is that the INMO has been ensuring to protect nurses and midwives. So for example, if someone got COVID-19, and unfortunately over 28,000 healthcare workers were infected with COVID-19, and those people would have been off work, their sick leave would have been ate up, they wouldn't have secured their premium pay, they wouldn't have kept their allowances, only for the work of the unions and the INMO to ensure that was in place. So the first thing we secured last March, 12 months, was that it wasn't counted as part of your sick leave. COVID leave is completely separate to your sick leave, and therefore you protect your sick leave entitlement. We have a lot of people that work premium shifts. So we argued, it took us 6 months through a WRC process and 5 conciliation conferences, but we secured retrospectively to March that anybody that was out with special leave with pay due to COVID-19 would retain their normal basic pay, their allowances, and their normal premium pay. So if they worked Saturdays or Sundays in the normal course of a 6-week period, that would have to be factored into the calculations. And it took 6 months, we secured it, and it applied retrospectively. Now, a lot were working against us with regards to that because they wanted everything to be cross-sectoral. What's cross-sectoral? So basically education, defence, justice, health, all those various departments, everyone would be treated the same. But we secured for healthcare workers and for nurses and midwives that their premium pay would be protected. Also, as you know, schools shut down. A lot of our female-dominated profession. 92% of nursing is female. 98% of midwifery is female. 75% of all healthcare workers are female. So again, the INMO has been to the fore in protecting the rights of female workers in that regard. And the schools were closed. That had an adverse effect upon our members. They had to use annual leave and parental leave, etc., to look after their kids that now could not go to school. And the INMO, working with other unions, secured the return of that annual leave and the return of that parental leave for those staff. And that's just two examples, I suppose, of where we had to utilize the industrial relations machinery of the state in order to secure benefits for our members. But even during COVID, there was other things. We had members that weren't allowed to wear masks at the very beginning. And when you look back on that in retrospect, you're like, how could that possibly be the case? But the INMO adopted immediately a principle that you have to put in place all the protections possible until you know more about this virus. It's called the precautionary principle. And we'd seen learnings, and again, because of our involvement and our international connections, there was significant learning from the SARS outbreak in the Middle East. Also, there was a SARS outbreak in Canada. And the key thing that came out of the various inquiries there was that you need to apply the precautionary principle. Until you know everything about the virus, you put the max amount of protections in place in order to ensure and protect the workplace. And that's what we did. We said everybody should be allowed to wear a mask. We had members that were sent home because they wanted to wear a mask. And that's completely unacceptable. So the significance of, again, us being organized, having participation, having our members proactive in the union allowed us to exert our pressure and power at local level to ensure that people were allowed to wear masks. But in addition to that, we used our political clout, our public relations side of things in order to ensure that our members were protected. And, you know, there's other things that are happening presently and that we continuously work to do. So, for example, as well as the pay increases secured as part of the strike, there's a 1% pay rise due this October, or 1% due the following October 2022. But there are other measures that we continue to pursue on a continuous basis. For example, last week, the rate at which you get paid for overtime was increased, again, as part of the Building Momentum Agreement. And there's other issues that are outstanding under Building Momentum that we need to address, including the return of the Haddington Road hours. So that's where your hours of work would decrease from 39 hours to 37.5 hours, due to be implemented in 2022. So again, that's just an example of what the organization does, but the vital thing is participation. It's vital that you are active in the union, that you're involved in the branches and involved in sections, and that you get the message across to your colleagues, or even that you're just active in your workplace. If there's issues of concern, that you contact Catherine, is going to speak after me, contact the Information Office, which is a very rich resource of information, rights and entitlements. Whether you're in the public or the private sector, we can assist you with regards to those matters. And obviously we have a team of officials around the country that can assist our lay activists or our volunteers in various branch officers and other positions and local representatives, because they're vitally important. So again, as you head out into your careers, you have a lot of things to think about. Where am I going to work? Have to do my interviews. The INMO is there to support you with regards to that. But once you're in the workplace, make sure you're a member of the Irish Nurses and Midwives organisation. You're part of a growing movement of over 40,000 nurses and midwives who are progressing the professions of nursing and midwifery, as well as progressing your terms and conditions of employment and getting improvements with those on a continuous basis. Again, during COVID, we brought the fight to the politicians. We made numerous submissions to the Oireachtas We appeared before the Health Committee and the COVID Committee within the Oireachtas, and various reports have come out as a result of that. For example, the nursing home sector. And again, we'll be pursuing those issues with government to ensure implementation. When you go into the workplace as well, we want you to work in an environment that's safe, where you have safe staffing, appropriate skill mix for you to deliver optimum care. And that's vitally important, and that resources are put into that area to ensure that you have a good quality of work life, but also that the appropriate work-life balance issues are in place so that you don't get burnt out. And indeed, we're pursuing with the Health and Wellbeing Division of the HSE additional supports for nurses and midwives, and many of them out there at the moment that are suffering from long COVID. So I think just in conclusion, it's vitally important that you participate. It's vitally important that you're a member. You'll hear from it's not about the benefits of being in the membership of the INMO. That's vitally important, but it's more than that. You need to be part of a movement. You need to be engaged. Acquiescence is not an option, because acquiescence allows you to be treated less favorably than others. And it's important that all our membership are involved and are progressing the various issues of importance to us. So I do really wish you well in your careers. You're going to have loads of opportunities on this island, and indeed, unfortunately, you will travel around the world, and other countries will get the benefit of the wonderful training that you've had in the Republic of Ireland. But again, we really do need you. We have secured from the Minister and the HSE that all graduates will be offered a permanent position in the Irish healthcare system. And it is vitally important, particularly in the midst of a pandemic, that we have our members back working in the workplace. So I wish you all the very best. And at that, I'm going to hand you back to Kieran. Thank you.